Next, I want to announce the part on our program, the Innovation in Action, Ensuring a Water Future. As North Carolina State faculty and students work toward solutions to the grand challenge of a safe and secure water supply, our partners in government and private industry are doing their part to expand the horizons of technology and best practices in water security. The upcoming live and multimedia presentations will give you a snapshot of work underway here in North Carolina and around the world.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Claudia Staud. I'm principal scientist in BASF SE in Ludwigshafen, and I'm working in the material research. So I believe in the audience here, it's pretty obvious that our water resources are strongly limited. If we take a look, for example, to California, and that's what has been already mentioned today, 50% of fruits and all vegetables produced in the US are growing there. And 8 out of 10 almonds we are eating globally are also coming from California. However, it's a drought area, and many farmers are forcing to shut down their business because there's not enough water and the wells are drying out. So what we definitely need is not only innovations on drinking water production, but also innovations on new irrigation systems. So if we are looking for innovations, one of the major aspects in BASF's strategy is innovations based on chemistry. Now we are looking for, of course, global challenges, and derived from the global challenges, like, for example, a growing population and all the consequences of increasing water, increasing energy, increasing food, we are deriving current and future needs, and we are addressing these needs in technology and growth fields. And one of that growth fields, for example, in BASF is water. Now, let's take a look at the water challenge. I think we already discussed it. In 2050, we will have 9 billion people on Earth, and we will have a global water demand of around 5,000 to 6,000 cubic kilometer, which is really huge. And also, we have still a major part of this one in irrigation. We can see a positive trend because the amount of water we need for irrigation is proposed to decrease because the systems are getting smarter and smarter. If we look for how much energy you need for cleaning up water, you see that on the right-hand side of that slide. You see that the more contamination you have in the water, the more energy you need. That means if you want to go for desalination of seawater, you need 6 to 20 times more energy than if you clean up surface or river water. So recycling processes in the future will be the most important thing we have to take care of. So now let's take a look what we have in BASF's portfolio nowadays. So we have, for example, we can take the purification of water in sanitation. We have, for example, coagulants. We have membrane units, which you can use as a post-treatment in the waste treatment plants. And then you can dispose that water again to the river. On the other hand, we also have the systems in the industry where we have assets and they need to protect it. We need corrosion inhibitors, for example, and we also need anti-scalants. And in the desalination plants, we offer solutions where you can have a proper treatment to make the desalination much more efficient. So in our portfolio, we have a couple of different approaches and solutions in order to treat the water properly, and I want to show you 2 examples out of it. We have, for example, the Cetac Ultra. That's a flocculant, and that flocculant is used for decreasing that turbidity. The turbidity always disturbs your filtration processes, and it takes a very long time to filter your or clarify your water in the wastewater treatment plant. And our flocculant, for example, can be used to enhance that filtration step, and so we can reduce the OPEX cost, the transport, and also the disposal costs. We also have membrane business inside of BASF. We have acquired 4 years ago the Inge Water technology, and that's a small company which is producing ultrafiltration membranes. With an ultrafiltration membrane, you can produce virus and bacteria-free water very reliable. So you have clean drinking water from different sources. And that ultrafiltration membrane, that's what you can see, that multi-pore straw in the middle of that slide. This is produced in Greifenberg, and they are using our polyether sulfone, the Atrazine E, a material which BASF is producing since a very long time, which is also used in dialysis. And so that's a very good approach where you can also see that we are backward integrated, and of course now we are able to change the chemistry of the material and go further in the value chain up to the membrane material and up to the module. So this ultrafiltration can be used in all different kinds of water sources. For example, we can treat river and surface water up to wastewater as a post-treatment, for example, and we have all different kinds of applications from the municipal application plants up to the point of end use. With that ultrafiltration, that's a broad variety of things you can done over there. And if we here now look at the last slide, that is a summary where you can see all the different products in the portfolio we have inside of BASF. It starts, of course, with drinking water production. We have the chemicals which are used in the industry assets to run them properly. We have also the improve of the sanitation supports. And what is, I think, the main message for today, we need to look for new water sources. We have to recycle, of course, our water in order to close the gap between the supply and the demand of water. So thanks for your attention.
Good morning. My name is Jay Zimmerman. I'm the Director of the Division of Water Resources. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what it is we do, our role in the protection of water resources in the state of North Carolina. And I'm going to start with our purpose, our mission. Our mission is to protect, enhance, and manage the water resources of North Carolina, both groundwater and surface water resources, for the best intended use and for the citizens of North Carolina, including the economic well-being of the citizens and of the state. I've been asked to talk a little bit about some things that you've heard some earlier speakers mention, both the federal legislation and how we dovetail with the federal legislation, including the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act, as well as implementing various state regulations. That's the Cuyahoga River. I was about 9 years old when that caught on fire, and I learned that I could not light water on fire unless I had an oil slick on top of it. So the primary purpose of the Clean Water Act, as you heard, is to protect, restore, maintain the chemical, physical, and biological integrity of our waters, our surface waters. And we do that in partnership with the EPA by managing and permitting wastewater treatment activities that discharge into our surface waters. We also implement the Safe Drinking Water Act. We have a public water supply section that I'll talk about briefly here in a few moments. And we implement the drinking water standards that are established by the U.S. EPA. Those regulations apply to specific types of drinking water facilities for specific constituents. The EPA provides funding through grants as well as oversight of our programs to make sure that North Carolina implements the programs in accordance with the overriding federal regulations. We also implement a number of state regulations that apply to both our groundwater and our surface water resources. We implement rules of the EMC, the Environmental Management Commission, and the purpose of those rules is obviously to protect those surface waters and groundwaters for their best intended uses. So, Clean Water Act programs. Principally, that involves our MPDES wastewater permitting programs, wastewater collection systems, the pretreatment program, and 401 certifications and management of wetlands. Those are all implemented, at least from a permitting perspective, by our water quality permitting section. Also included in that section's responsibilities is the permitting of the non-discharge wastewater permitting activities, your non-point source programs, buffer programs intended to protect some surface waters. Safe Drinking Water Act, that is the responsibility, at least for the permitting and location and management of your drinking water resources of the public water supply section. And the purpose of the Safe Drinking Water Act is to promote public health and ensure a safe, potable drinking water supply for the citizens of the state and ensure adequate quantities of water are available. They do that through ensuring the proper location, and construction, and maintenance of systems. Both surface water and groundwater sources are included. They conduct compliance inspections, well site inspections, provide technical assistance, complaint and disaster response, and a lot of those activities are administered out of our regional, a little friend here, out of our regional offices. Approximately half of the staff of the division are located in the regional offices. We have 7 regional offices scattered across the state, from the coast all the way to the mountains. The staff in the regions are actually the ones that implement many of the programs, or all of the programs just about, within the division. They evaluate permit applications. We conduct field visits, complaint and compliance inspections, respond to calls for buffer and stream determinations, and provide technical assistance and educational outreach to the citizens of the state. They also implement, as you had heard earlier, the ambient monitoring program. All the samples for the ambient monitor, or actually a vast majority of the samples collected for the ambient monitoring program, are collected by staff out of the regional offices with assistance from staff from the water sciences section, which I'll talk about here in a few moments. We also conduct complaint and disaster response. So anytime there's a hurricane, it's the staff in the field offices that are responding to complaints and concerns about drinking water quality and surface water quality. We also manage the animal operations out of the 7 regional offices within the groundwater protection program. Quickly, water quality planning section is the section that conducts the integrated watershed and management programs. It's the first time that we've integrated or working on integrating both the quantity and quality aspects of our programs. They help with rule updates, development of standards, classification of water bodies, maintenance of the 303D list, which is part of the Clean Water Act, and water conservation and drought management activities. And last is the water sciences section. That's where all the science is pulled together with the ambient monitoring, the stream, river, estuary monitoring, fish testing, fish sampling, toxicological monitoring, and that's what houses our laboratory where all the work is done for the thousands of samples that are collected every year within the division. And so in closing, I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that 5 minutes is a lot to talk about all these programs. The Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act provide the basis for all the work that we do within the Division of Water Resources, including implementation of state regulations, and it is the staff of the division, the 400+ staff of the division, that make it happen. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Craig Westerbeek with Smithfield Foods, and anybody that knows me knows that 5 minutes and me talking in only 5 minutes is almost impossible, but I'm going to do my very best here to do that, and I want to talk to you about water conservation on swine farms. That's what I was asked to come talking about, and I think it's a very important issue. You know, water conservation is a key management tool for swine operations, and more than just from the standpoint of how much water a swine farm would withdraw and take from the aquifer. If you don't manage your water usage, you could be looking at increased cost, potential compliance issues. I'll talk about both of those, in addition to, avoidable withdrawals of groundwater. Producers can't control, at any CAFO, how much rainfall they get, but they can control water usage. And, I've found that return on investment for investing in water conservation practices on the farm is generally a very good return on investment. The cost impacts for water usage or excess water usage are largely driven by the additional land application that a swine farm or CAFO would have to endure. And I provide an example here of a 4,000 head finishing farm, swine farm with 2 different water usage, both of which I've seen out in the field. And what you see there is, if you assume a $4 per thousand cost for the 1,000 gallons cost of land application, you'll see that the farm with the higher water usage would actually spend $8,700 more a year, which is a significant amount of money on a farm this size per year just in land application cost, and really wouldn't get a lot of nutrient benefit from that because a lot of that would be diluted. From a compliance standpoint, maybe even more important to swine producers, you know, if you manage your water usage on the farm, once again, we can't always manage rainfall. We can't manage rainfall. That's up to the Lord. But if we manage our water, conserve water on our farm, we could be looking at opportunities to improve our freeboard management, have lower amounts of overall land application, a more predictable irrigation scheduling, and increased treatment and storage capacity in our treatment systems. Using the same example as before, I've gone through some numbers, only got 5 minutes, you guys can read, but in essence what you're looking at is, you know, in general rainfall excess over evaporation is only 15 to 20% of annual manure volume, and when you figure all this together, what you find is, using that same example, you've got to land apply a lot more water, and it's a lot more difficult for you to manage your system. So it's my opinion that cost share dollars should be devoted to water conservation on CAFO swine farms because it generally is one of the cheapest opportunities for a producer to improve their overall management of their system. So real quickly, going into some of the water use strategies, what do you do about it? Water meters is a good example. I mean, you see a lot more out there now than you used to. Division of Soil and Water had a program, got a lot of those out there, but you certainly can't manage what you can't measure, so that's a good first step. You know, then record that regularly. Understand what your water usage is. It's amazing for folks that don't record it, and you go and talk to them and say, how's your water usage on your farm? Well, I do a great job. Put the water meter in and really tell the story generally, particularly when they start recording it, and they see the opportunity. Set targets and manage to those targets. Fix leaks in your building when they pop up. You know, install pressure regulators, water nipples, lower volume type systems inside the farms. There's several of those, and I've got some pictures to show you those. The most important criteria, though, is visibility on what your water usage is. That's going to be your most effective tool. And here's an example of a very common inline water meter that you'll see at a lot of farms. If you look at water targets, I've put up here what our water targets are at Smithfield on the East Coast. They differ if you're in the Southwest or in the Midwest, but these are our water usage targets, and you'll see they're about 5% of what a human would generally use in a day or less. But having those and seasonally adjusting those based on whether the temperature's hot or cold, and making sure you know you have a target you're trying to work to, these actually match the NRCS standards with regards to water usage. And once again, that can vary depending on the type of building you use, et cetera. We do recycle treated wastewater inside our buildings for cleaning subfloors, and that's a huge water savings, and that's something NC State really promoted years ago that everybody does, and it works really well. Weekly observations and documentation, and then manage to your targets. Here's an example inside a building. Somebody said a while ago, you know, this isn't rocket science. I usually say, no, it's not rocket science. It's a lot easier. And this is really not that difficult. But in this picture, you'll see, you know, you got some flow regulation and you got some pressure regulation built into the water system in the farm. Here's a little bit closer up of the pressure regulator itself in the building. Why is that important? When animals go to drink, if the pressure's too high in your lines, and it may be coming from your well, you know, a lot of times they'll play with it and they'll use excess water over and above what they need. Certainly in all this, the animals' needs are first and foremost, and these water targets certainly give them that, but beyond that, that's the part we're trying to manage. Another example is swinging and cup waters. A lot of producers use these. They're available on the market. They're really good as compared to fixed panel water nipples on the side of buildings or on the side of pinning. Individual crate water nipples rather than trough dams, which we've seen in farms for years, older design farms. And that's all. I guess I don't have any questions, but I think I did do it in 5 minutes, and I'm glad to answer any questions later on. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Michael Dobbs. I'm with Bayer Crop Science. I'm going to try to explain in the little time I have on how we develop crop protection products with a focus on water resources and water quality. It takes a lot of time and effort to develop a crop protection product. Traditional chemistry averages around 10 years and $256 million. Out of that $256 million, approximately 50 to 80 million is spent on the product safety profile. In the time I have, I'm going to try to explain where that money goes. We evaluate the human safety. That means mammalian tox studies, metabolism studies, food residue studies. We do evaluate drinking water, come up with estimates based on conservative assumptions. Environmental safety, we define the ecotox profile. We evaluate the environmental fate. And then we generate exposure estimates. And we take all that information we develop and we do a risk assessment. I'll touch on that in a minute. So we test a range of aquatic organisms, everything from fish to daphnids to trouts. And there are standard studies that we do, but I would like to note that we often do more than what is the basic requirement. All the studies are done under GLP, most in the laboratory. Sometimes we do go out in the field and do model ecosystems called mesocosms that can give us a lot of helpful information. So environmental fate testing, we start with the basic, the physical chemical properties, solubility, things like that. But then we start asking questions in terms of how would the compound behave in the environment. Does it break down under photolysis? Does it break down by soil microbes? We do identify all the major degradants and characterize those. And for water, probably the key aspect is mobility. Will the compound move? How could it get into water? And we do that through lab studies and some field studies. The picture on the bottom right is actually a specialized study where we were looking at movement off an urban setting, where we actually applied under different application schemes through the lawn, the house side, the driveway, and then we measured how much came off. So we take all that information, and we have a set of standard models we use in standard scenarios. We take rainfall, how the product used, and the models will model key processes like soil breakdown, runoff erosion, spray drift, and that's how we generate our exposure numbers. So I mentioned risk and hazard. I thought this graphic was good considering all the news at the beach this year about swimming with sharks. But the key point is you don't have a risk unless you have hazard and exposure co-occurring, and in fact, the exposure needs to be higher than hazard for it to happen. You know, for crop protection products, it's not quite as simple as, you know, whether to take a swim in the water at the beach this summer. It's much more complex. The weather plays a big role. The soil plays a big role. How the product is used plays a critical role. So you get not just one exposure number. In fact, you get a range of exposure numbers for all the compartments. On the effects side, we do have a range of sensitivity. And what we're really actually interested in is the overlap, that little yellow piece in the bottom. That's where we have risk. And when we have some risk, when we do this evaluation, that's when we refine the evaluation, or we might propose mitigation measures to reduce that risk to acceptable levels. So to summarize, you know, crop protection products are probably the most thoroughly tested and heavily regulated pesticides in the world. I would say not to knock the old chemistries because some of them are still very useful. In general, the new chemistries are more environmentally friendly. And that's mainly because they have reduced rates, but they also tend to be more specific to the target pest. And what that means is they're less likely to impact non-target pests. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the newer technologies, things like GMO, BT corn, minimal risk to water. It's a great way to control your pest and have really minimal risk to the environment. Seed trim, it's actually a great way to put just what you need out in the environment. Because you're putting out the seed in the soil, it's less likely to run off and reach water bodies. Biologics tend to be safer to non-target organisms. They have a fairly soft profile. And then you get what you can do in terms of applying precision ag, using just what you need where you need it, application and formulation technology can reduce exposure. And finally, there is a range of best management practices like no-till or buffer that can help reduce exposure and make risk acceptable. Thank you.
Conservation is always good, but also the economic value that comes with conservation is also a big advantage and a big use for the farmers themselves.
There's lots of reasons that farmers would choose to implement a conservation practice, but it's always because they want to. The things that we work with farmers to do are all voluntary. So the farmers would choose to implement a practice to control erosion on their farm, to protect water quality, to preserve wildlife. There's lots of reasons that they would do that, but oftentimes it's also to help the farm operate more efficiently and to make better use of the resources that they're investing in their farm, like the water and the fertilizers and agrochemicals. You want to use those as efficiently as possible and reduce the amount of loss through runoff, through leaching and those types of things. In our state agriculture cost share program, we have over 50 practices that are approved by the Soil and Water Conservation Commission for cost sharing to help protect water quality. And so among those are practices that are aimed at waste management for livestock waste and mortalities, cropland type practices like grassed waterways, field borders, riparian buffers that treat the water that runs off, that protect the stream as a last measure before water actually would enter the stream, livestock exclusion fencing, and then with the fencing, whenever you're excluding livestock, there's all kinds of needs to provide alternative watering sources for the livestock that may have previously been dependent upon the stream for their watering source.
Even if you think about it, irrigation has an impact on water quality because we do what we call irrigation water management type practices that kind of gives you an idea on how much water to put on, when to put it on, based on your soil types and your crop needs. Many people don't think about irrigation as it relates to water quality, but it has a big impact on water quality. So there are several practices. In fact, most of our practices probably have a positive impact on water quality. There are several agencies that make up the partnership. The main players, if you will, for the partnerships are federal, state, and local soil conservation districts. From a federal standpoint, we are here as a federal agency to support the local soil conservation districts. We provide both technical and financial assistance for the same customers. We all have the same customers. We're all there working together.
The Division of Soil and Water Conservation is the part of the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and we exist primarily to support the needs and the operations of the local soil and water conservation districts. And from our perspective, that's where the action is at the local district, where the farmer interacts with that local staff.
Farmers will come into our office and ask for assistance, or they'll call, and we make an appointment to go out to the farm and look at the farm with that farmer, look at their soil types, look at their management style, what kind of economic resources they have, and all of those factors take into account when we're looking and or assessing their problems and resource concerns on their farm. We don't always use financial assistance with the landowner, but we do provide technical assistance with that landowner whether they receive financial assistance or not. There is a locally led soil and water board in each county across the state, and that board has set priorities in that county. They will actually set the priorities according to what the watershed is, if it's a protected watershed here in the state, or other resource concerns, because they're in that community. They understand working with farmers, they understand what the resource concerns are in that neighborhood or in that county specifically.
Good morning. My name is Clayton Morton. I'm with John Deere. And we want to thank you for the opportunity this morning to speak about a tool that we have for water management in crop land. And also we use this tool extensively in perennial crops as well. That tool is John Deere Field Connect line, and with John Deere Field Connect, we monitor the environment. We also monitor the soil moisture at varying depths, and we use that in the process of managing water and conservation of water in crop production, particularly in irrigated crops. What our goals are with John Deere Field Connect is really to have a solution for our growers that enables us to monitor these moisture levels in the field, improve the plant health by timely use of irrigation, and also optimize the water, nutrients, and energy use in that field. We want to document the management actions that we take and record the irrigation and rainfall events. So in the process of doing this, our goal is to improve the crop health and utilize stress in the crop, such as wine grapes, when it is necessary. Of course, an overriding goal is proper utilization of irrigation in the crop. To do this, we have certain components. This includes a gateway, which all of our in-field data is transmitted in through the web. These gateways either go by satellite connection or cellular connection from the field. We have a soil moisture probe that measures moisture over specific depths. It measures moisture quite frequently throughout the day, and we have our data within 2 hours of the measurement. These probes are connected to the gateways by a wireless system, so it enables 8 probes to be monitored through one gateway. We have multiple capacitance sensors on these probes, and they're in varying lengths. We have a 0.5 meter, 1 meter, 1.5 meter probes that we utilize based on the crop and the needs of the crop. They take moisture readings at certain critical depths that we find very important for crop management, and also the lower depth is very important in understanding the depth of the water table and also the movement of water through the profile and minimization of that. We also have a certain number of sensors that are related to the environment in the field. Each gateway can function as a weather station. We have a rain gauge. We also have different sensors to capture part of the environment. We can calculate the reference ET at sea level utilizing these sensors. We also can calculate chill hours, degree days, and we have a built-in frost alert into the system. We use the rain gauge not only to measure the amount of rainfall that occurs over the season, but also to be able to capture the amount of irrigation that enters the crop. We also utilize this, utilize a leaf wetness sensor within the crop to help us to determine what the potential for disease may be, and it can be put into disease models if necessary. We also calculate with a pyranometer the solar radiation for a day, and this is important for us to understand the components of ET that occur specifically within that managed field. What we generate there is a series of graphics that the grower can use in their management of irrigation and soil moisture. This particular graph shows the individual sensors and their readings, what the volumetric soil moisture is, and we use that to demonstrate or to show the total soil moisture at that particular sensor level. We also use a graphic that shows the amount of moisture in the soil over the depth of the profile that's measured. And this amount of soil moisture can be related to the volumetric soil moisture that is needed to produce the crop and the right amount of water in the soil at that time. We have budget lines in there to help eliminate over-irrigation in particular, which we find to be most prevalent in the early stages of crop production. and also to give us a refill point, at which point we are entering the lower levels of the profile in terms of moisture, and so an irrigation may be needed. Typically, the benefits that we find with Field Connect are as follows. First of all, the irrigated customers that use Field Connect typically irrigate 1 to 2 times less than when we do not monitor, and they do not base it on soil moisture levels. We also commonly see a yield response, and I will make this statement. It may not apply to North Carolina, but it applies globally. Typically, 80% of the growers irrigate in the early part of the vegetative growth cycle of the season. And we typically extend the irrigation cycle during that time, and we also extend it later in the season for those using the technology. In dryland customers, we very often find the being able to track the refill points help us understand better when to put out nutrient applications. When are the root systems active? When is the potential there for uptake to occur? And particularly, when is the potential there to not have it move through the profile? So these are 2 areas that we find are very important to us. Also with our customers, we are supported by our dealers. Our John Deere dealers do the installation, and they work directly with the grower in the interpretation of what is found there. And we do take moisture readings 48 times a day, as well as the other environmental readings, and we send those to our website where the graphics are contained every 2 hours. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce this to you, and I hope the conference continues to go with the great quality that we've seen so far. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. We've switched to afternoon now. My name is Dan Campbell. I'm with Syngenta Crop Protection, and I head up our Stewardship and Regulatory Policy Group in Greensboro. Mark White had intended to give this talk to you, but was unable to get here from Missouri, where he lives, so I'm your last-minute stand-in, and hopefully I can present our program in the required 5 minutes. I'm here to present to you the results of an ongoing on-the-ground water quality stewardship program we're conducting in Missouri. It's on a relatively small runoff vulnerable watershed in northeast Missouri. We call it within the program Missouri 02. It's a Goodwater Creek watershed. It's particularly prone to runoff because of the presence of a contiguous shallow clay pan restrictive layer. It also has highly sloped fields, as well as the type of soil that lend it to be runoff vulnerable. It actually is one of about 10 similar watersheds. We're doing similar intensive stewardship programs throughout parts of the Midwest as well as parts of the South. The goal of the stewardship program is to develop a effective program in reducing the herbicide atrazine runoff into water. Atrazine is important to corn growers, sorghum growers, and also to specialty crop growers that use it as a weed control tool. We implemented it as a TMDL-like program. It is a regulatory requirement under FIFRA, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, but its goal was to adopt TMDL-like approach to attempt to improve practices for both cultural farm practices as well as structural practices that are known to improve or decrease atrazine runoff into small streams in similar watersheds. Deliverables include education outreach module, implementation of a training module in certified applicator required training, development of vulnerability maps, which I'll show you some of, and then a feedback loop that included a farm practices survey, a structural survey, as well as atrazine monitoring in Goodwater Creek itself. This is the stewardship education outreach piece. You can see it's a fairly intensive program that involves meetings with both at the state level with commodity groups, Farm Bureau, ARS, Extension, folks like that that are knowledgeable in these types of programs in the state of Missouri. It's a label education outreach campaign that includes pamphlets and the like that we give to the applicators, growers, retailers, and the like. We have annual meetings with applicators, the growers, and retailers, where we talk about BMPs and also give updates on how they're doing with the changes with atrazine. And then we try to get folks together, both the growers and retailers, as well as Farm Bureau and Extension and others that can help sit and talk and work on this issue. We did, in order to reach more folks, we developed a restricted use training module. We were able to reach a few thousand folks. The certified applicator training requirement for folks who use restricted use pesticides saw a video that I'll briefly describe in a minute, where we were able to get more folks aware and get more outreach. And then these field vulnerability maps I'll show to you. This is a very brief summary of the restricted use module. I won't go into this in detail with the time I have, but you can see it starts, the video itself starts with questions on the farm practice itself. What do you use? How do you use it? What are your general stewardship programs within the farm? And as a result, a sort of a decision tree on the types of cultural changes, some of the things like adopt some of the precision application equipment that was talked about with the previous speaker, or adding some changes such as to plant on the contour, not down the hill into the stream, things like that. And then also some suggestions for structural changes, be it improving grass waterways, riparian areas, things like that. This is an example of a field vulnerability map we generated for the Goodwater Creek watershed. We developed an index that involves the depth to impervious layer, the slope, use intensity, the soil types. The pour point for this watershed is up in the upper right corner here. So you can see as along the stream, the darker is more vulnerable farm or field. And this was very useful for us to know what farms to target. In addition, we showed the applicators, the growers and the retailers, and it was very eye-opening for them to see that how their fields, or the fields that they're applying on, relate to the runoff of a chemical such as a farm chemical such as atrazine, and how they fit into the overall picture here. So these were actually very powerful tools in this program. The next few slides relate to the feedback loop that we developed. We did a statistical, or as statistical as we could, practices survey, and you can see the types of things, information we got, or where was atrazine used, how much. We were able to track it over the years, what types of practices and where. In addition, we did a flyover survey to elucidate structural practices in the watershed. We did one in 2010 and then another one in 2014, and we were able to track over time changes in structural practices. You probably can't see this, but things like how well are the waterways grassed on the edges, are there new terraces, things like that. And then based on comparing to the field vulnerability map, we're able to see how people were doing with structural changes. And then as importantly, our atrazine concentrations. So this is just a graph over time. The y-axis is parts per billion atrazine as a 60-day rolling average, and then across the years here. This red line is EPA federal, their level of concern. At the beginning of this program, they were actually up around 18 part per billion for 60 days. And as they changed to get a little more protective, and this is a level of concern based on potential impact of primary producers. So what's atrazine's impact on algae? They moved down in about 2009, they moved down to a draft LOC of 10 part per billion. We then got more intensive with the program as I just described. And you can see the trending of residues. This shows up to 2013, 2014, and 15, which aren't on this graph, are also similar, well below this 10 part per billion. The brief word on the sustainability aspects. We thought this was an important piece that to develop something that was sustainable when we left and weren't able to do such intensive work. that the practices remain. So we didn't do it based on incentives. We wanted things that were viable economically to the user and grower, that didn't change the crop itself and the yield and the profitability of the farm, and that also were transferable. That in itself could be a 15-minute presentation. So in conclusion, our practices that we determined were at least effective in this case, really the key was engagement of the stakeholders, getting them to understand what the issue was, and really what we find is for the majority of growers, if they understand what the problem is, they'll set about to fix it. Local relationships were really important. The watershed level work takes a lot of time, and nothing happens quickly in terms of changes to something like atrazine and the runoff piece. And we did find that the actual practices that were most effective aren't necessarily the most readily adoptable, but some of the cultural ones, such as changing your timing of application, improving the rate in some of those vulnerable watersheds, things like that, we found were very important. So hopefully I didn't run over too much. Thank you for your time and attention.
Greenville Utilities Commission was formed back in 1905 by the legislature. They chartered us, and we provided water and electric services to customers to begin with. And over the years, we've gone to provide water, sewer, gas, and electric to about 75% of Pitt County. This location is our 22.5 million gallon a day water treatment plant. We pump about 63 million gallons of water into our reservoir, which then flows into our treatment plant, where all the solids are taken out, the water is filtered and disinfected, and then allowed to travel into the distribution system. Our major water source is the Tar River. Most days, our water is treated from the Tar River, and that's used to supply industrial, wholesale customers, and also average customers as well. We do use groundwater from time to time. We have 8 deep water wells in the Cretaceous aquifer that we can draw from. The Central Coastal Plain Capacity Use Area Rule went into effect in 2002, and it affects 15 counties in the Central Coastal Plain of North Carolina. Capacity Use Area Rule affects anybody who withdraws more than 100,000 gallons of water out of the aquifer, and so they have to report to the state so the state can manage those water withdrawals and get a good idea of which water users are impacting the aquifer the most. Interbasin transfer is a transfer of water from one watershed into another one. We had to go through an interbasin transfer certificate approval process back 2006 to 2010 in order to be able to be approved to transfer more than 2 million gallons of water on any given day from the Tar-Pam Basin into the Neuse Basin, which is where Farmville and Greene County exist as our customers. And so it can be a very lengthy process. There's evaluations that you have to go through in order to determine if there are any impacts and if those impacts can be mitigated. Impacts can be recreational use of the water, make sure the waterways are still going to be navigable. Also impacts on water quantity for other customers that exist within both basins, and also water quality. When the capacity use area was put into place in 2002, I think Farmville and Greene County shortly after that came to us and inquired if we would be willing to sell additional water capacity that we had at our treatment plant. And we evaluated the situation and realized at the time that we had additional capacity that we could sell, and we're more than happy to help them out in meeting the capacity use area rules. I'd say one thing we've done to improve the aquifer levels in this area is to help provide water to other communities. The 5 that I mentioned earlier, Farmville, Greene County, Winnable, Stokes, and Bethel, we provide wholesale water to them. Again, our wholesale water is mainly water from the Tar River, and that can replace the water that they're taking out of the aquifer and help offset some of the use of the aquifer, and hopefully it will recover. Aquifer storage and recovery is a process where you inject water into a groundwater well, and then it's stored until you want to recover it. We've been working on this project for a number of years, and we still got some fine details to work out, but hopefully it's a solution to meeting some peak demands during times of need. Some of the things we've done over the last few years to determine if the Tar River is going to be our long-term source is do a Tar River availability study, where we looked at the impacts of additional withdrawals on the river, on the aquatic life, and on the surrounding communities. Diener public water supply section out of Washington organizes meetings with the other surface water plants in this area to discuss challenges that we face and also upcoming challenges that we may face as well. One organization we belong to is the Urban Water Consortium, and it's part of the Water Resources Research Institute out of NC State. We meet together with 11 other water and wastewater utilities across North Carolina, and we try to find areas to fund research on existing and also emerging issues in the water resources industry. We also can share stories of successes and failures on day-to-day events.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Heilman. I'm Senior Aquatic Technology Leader with CPRO Corporation. And my title actually is Sustainable Management of Aquatic Ecosystems and Water Resources. CPRO has a unique focus in this area, and as indicated by our theme of the last 3 years in positioning what we do with CPRO in aquatics, we have described ourselves as the stewards of water. And this stewardship, I think, as you'll see as I go through content here, is critical to our mission and how we support water resource management. CPRO is a research-driven, U.S.-based life science company. We focus on specialty chemical and pharmaceutical uses. We're an industry leader in providing very specialized solutions and technical support for management needs in these specialty niche markets. Some of these include greenhouse and nursery uses, turf and ornamentals, turf landscape, professional turf management. Pharmaceutical industry is Parapro, our sister company, offering the new FDA registered or approved human head lice product, Natroba. But really our claim to fame and our historical focus has been in the realm of aquatics, and specifically managing water resources impacted by aquatic problem species, usually invasive species, or harmful algae, excess nutrients, and eutrophication. We operate in all kinds of systems, nationally and to some degree internationally, including lakes and reservoirs, rivers, irrigation canals, preserving water uses ranging from drinking water, irrigation, as well as preserving the ecological habitat quality of systems and restoring systems that have been impacted. Dealing with harmful algae, aesthetics issues, preserving property shoreline values, many different uses of our aquatic ecosystems. Just to run through a quick tour of examples of the management that we're involved with. This is starting a little bit smaller scale, management of ponds. Local pond here in the mid-Atlantic, managed for a problem floating nuisance weed, a water meal, using one of our products, Sonar Genesis aquatic herbicide. Really restoring the system. Many of these photos, the pre-treatment condition will be on the left and the post-management condition will be on the right, and hopefully you can see the differences. This is a golf course pond also here on the east coast of the U.S., impacted by a floating mat of filamentous algae. And you can see how management using our Captain algicide product has improved the quality of the system. Going a little larger and perhaps broader in terms of impact, this is management of a Virginia drinking water reservoir. Using one of our two National Sanitation Foundation approved products. This is Sea Clear Algicide and Water Quality Enhancer, also an EPA approved algicide. Managing this system over the last 2 years to reduce cyanobacteria blooms, improve water quality, and reduce taste and odor compounds in this system. Same kinds of management can also deal with many of the potential toxic toxin issues associated with cyanobacterial blooms. Going out west, as Brian Richter talked about, our western U.S. is dominated by irrigation of crop systems, and the movement of irrigation water through irrigation canals is critical. Our products are used for managing these canal systems. Over 8,000 miles of irrigation canal are managed annually. You can see the change in the ability to move water through a system like this. Heavy weed infestations can reduce water holding and transport capacity by as much as 75% in these systems. Moving to lake and reservoir systems, we manage aquatic invasive plants at the largest scale. This is an example from the early 2000s, Houghton Lake is the largest inland lake in the state of Michigan, managed for 10,000 acres of the submerged invasive plant Eurasian water milfoil. Removing that system and allowing it to promote native aquatic plant diversity, and you can see the difference from pre-treatment to post-treatment left to right. Another example from the southern U.S. in Florida, management of a key reservoir system in central Florida, Lake Toho-Pecaliga, which is one of basically the world's best bass fisheries. And you can see the management of hydrilla. That's about 8-9 feet of water with topped out hydrilla. Hydrilla is considered the worst aquatic weed problem in the world and the U.S. And you can see it's basically completely filled the water column and reduced habitat quality for that bass fishery and many other uses, including floodwater management and other recreational uses. Finally, closer to home, we've had the opportunity in the last few years to assist the state of North Carolina with the effort to eradicate hydrilla from Lake Waccamaw. This 9,000-acre lake is an outstanding resource water of the state of North Carolina, and the system is particularly at risk from hydrilla infestation. And through a direct contract with the state of North Carolina, I've had the opportunity to assist the state in preventing hydrilla infestation of Lake Waccamaw. Even a little bit closer to home, here in the Raleigh-Durham area, the Eno River, one of the headwaters of the Neuse River, is a highly prized, highly used recreational water resource here in this part of the state. Is a home to endangered endemic species and really is a beautiful system. Unfortunately, it has been at risk also with hydrilla, a common theme, and this year a variety of state agencies collaborated to manage hydrilla in a 16-mile stretch of the Eno River, and CPRO is contracted to support that effort. And really had great results. This is an example of a public access area on the Eno River that a few years ago was dominated with surface topped out hydrilla and 2 feet of water or less. And this year you can see a little bit lower water level under drier conditions, but a system that the hydrilla has been removed and a more natural open state has been restored. I would encourage all of you, if you want more general information about the value of managing nuisance invasive plants and problem plants in the aquatic setting and algae, to query this website, the Council of Agricultural Science and Technology. They recently produced a position or issue paper about the benefits of controlling problem aquatic plants and algae. If you just go to their publication search section and type in aquatic, it'll come right up. And it's a good resource describing some of the ecological and economic benefits of managing these conditions. And with that, I'd like to thank organizers of the conference on behalf of CPRO for the opportunity to sponsor this event. And certainly try to find us, with several of us from CPRO here at the conference today. If you can't find us, go to our website, cpro.com, or follow up with me later for more information. Thank you.
I must say that I am so impressed with the range and the depth of the water-related technologies, that the discussion of those that we've seen just now, and for the excellence of the presentations, the excellence of the 5-minute presentations. Join me in thanking our partners for their presentations and for the work that they do.